Jane? The old ex-girlfriend. You are not like the other gods of kill. Because I have something worth fighting for.
Let's see who you are. I take off your disguise. And flick.
Oh, you flipped too hard, damn it!
Welcome back, everyone. This will be my new Thor Love and Thunder trailer video. They just dropped a bunch of new footage online, so we'll break it all down. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. The big thing with this footage that they dropped is that Thor is seeing Mjolnir reform for the first time, and I love the way that he's calling to it like a dog, like, here Mjolnir, come here, come here. The way they treat the hammer in the MCU is similar to the way that he treats it in the comics, but the way that the movies explain the power of the hammer is different from the powers in the comics. It sounds like when he's come back to New Asgard here, he sees Gorr's army attacking everyone, just trying to kill all the gods that they can find. So he naturally joins the fight, and while he's fighting all of Gorr's army here, you can see them kind of in the background here. They're meant to be consumed with some of the same power that you see coming from the Necro Sword. That's why they look like these writhing black monsters all over the place. While he's enjoying himself in the thrill of battle here, looking around New Asgard trying to save everyone, he sees Mjolnir flying around and just starts freaking out like, oh my god, it's back, Mjolnir is back. And then the big callback to the Avengers Endgame moment where the hammer actually came to Captain America when it was being called, like you saw it floating in the air, wondering who it was going to go to. Except this time they play it like a joke because Thor apparently has never seen Mighty Thor, Jane Foster, before. The look on his face says it all, like, what the hell is going on here? The way they play the trailer footage though, there's this big jump in footage, like you see her swinging the hammer around fighting these other people and he's kind of flabbergasted. But then they immediately jump to him wearing his full helmet. He's wearing this blue gold armor that looks kind of like a mixture of his battle armor as well as the Rune King Thor armor. So it sounds like during this fight they either finish fighting off Gorr's army and some of them leave, or they just defeat all of them. And at some point during the battle, he gets a big armor upgrade, and then eventually Jane Foster's Mighty Thor takes the helmet off and he recognizes that it is Jane Foster. Like, what? Jane? What's going on here? The big change in the comics is that when Mighty Thor was introduced, they played it as this big mystery for a long time, and Thor didn't know who she really was. But because a couple years ago at the Comic-Con when they said they were doing this movie, they said they were going to do it based on the Mighty Thor plot, so we all knew that it was going to be Jane Foster Thor. So I think they just didn't want to belabor the point, like he was going to find out that it was going to be Jane really quickly in the movie. So a lot of you now asking, how is it that Mjolnir has reformed? What are Jane Foster's Thor powers? Like, how powerful is she going to be during the movie compared to the regular version of Thor? The way it seems like they're playing it in the movie is because tourism is now a big thing in New Asgard. Like, you see all these funny moments with just regular tourism going on because now it's this big attraction. As part of that, they're doing the fake play again, but this time the fake play with Matt Damon's version of Loki, and you have Luke Hemsworth's version of Thor, and now Melissa McCarthy's version of Hela. They're doing the fake play based on the plot of Thor Ragnarok with Hela breaking the hammer, making fun of that. So it sounds like we'll watch that during the movie, and then Jane Foster will just be there at New Asgard for some reason and thinking about Mjolnir and touching the hammer, and it sounds like they're going to say that Hela was strong enough to break the hammer physically, but she wasn't strong enough to break Odin's enchantment on it. And the whole twist behind Odin's worthy enchantment on the hammer is that whoever's worthy and wields the hammer shall have the powers of Thor. So it sounds like when Gorr's army is getting ready to attack New Asgard or something really crazy happens in New Asgard, they need Thor, but he's not around, and Jane Foster just happens to be touching the pieces of Mjolnir on this altar here. It sounds like the Asgardians just like literally turned the earth around the pieces of Mjolnir into this shrine and lifted it up. That's how you get around the word of the enchantment. As long as you don't touch the actual pieces, you just touch the earth around the pieces, you could actually lift the hammer up, technically.
But if you put the hammer in an elevator, it would still go up. Elevator's not worthy.
I'm gonna miss these little talks of ours.
It's that whole Captain America joke, the elevator's not worthy, at the end of Avengers Age of Ultron. The elevator can carry the hammer, but that doesn't make the elevator worthy. She winds up touching the pieces of the hammer as New Asgard is being attacked, and that just activates Odin's enchantment. The hammer reforms again and gives her her armor. The only thing that we don't get from any of the trailer footage or anything that's happened in the MCU yet so far is to explain what it is that makes Jane Foster's Thor worthy according to Odin's enchantment. Like, what is it about her that makes her worthy? So post all your theories about that because it's coming right out of the Mighty Thor arc. The whole thing with her power level, like I said, is basically like a magical copy-paste version of what Thor's powers were, at least in the last couple of movies. So it's sort of a copy-paste workaround to giving someone else the same powers as Thor. Like literally anybody who wielded the hammer would get the same level of power. But it doesn't make her an actual legit god the way that Thor is supposed to be a legit god in the MCU. It just gives her some of the same types of powers, but it does look like they give her a couple unique abilities. When they're in Olympia fighting Zeus's men, you see her use the hammer and it breaks into a bunch of pieces and attacks a bunch of different people, like an area of effect attack, and then reforms back again to the regular hammer. I think they just did that to make it seem a little more dynamic on screen so that she's not exactly like the original version of Thor. Like, oh, we've seen those powers, make it do something else. They have that joke in the trailer about him not having seen her in like 8 years. I think that's meant to be a joke about Avengers Endgame and the snap. Because the last real big movie that they had together was Thor the Dark World, and that would have been even longer ago if you think about the 5-year time jump. So it sounds like she might have actually been snapped during the 5-year time jump because it sounds like she doesn't think that it's actually been that long, where Thor's like, no, it's been like over 8 years. And the way they're using her character versus Thor in the movie is they're sort of driving Thor to more of a cosmic Thor place in the comics. If you haven't read the Cosmic Thor arc, it's basically Thor getting a huge power upgrade, becoming more of an actual god, embracing that, and becoming more of a cosmic figure in the MCU. Because of what Odin had done, because of all the trials he went through, the god-level power he'd obtained, Thor was actually born a god, but he hasn't really embraced that in the same way. Like, he just calls himself a god, and he is correct. The whole idea during the movie, though, is that he's sort of shirking his responsibilities, and the Guardians of the Galaxy have to kind of inspire him to go after what it is that he really wants and find what it is that he really wants. Like, what do you do if you actually had the powers of a god in the MCU? And that's meant to dovetail with the whole Gorr the God Butcher plot, like the gods don't care about anyone, so I'm going to kill all of them. With Thor being one of the exceptions, like, no, I actually care about my subjects, I'm actually trying to help them now. So if you read the Rune King Thor plot or the Cosmic Thor plot, it's sort of Thor going more in that direction. Chris Hemsworth also said that he wanted to stick around in the MCU for a long time, so they're not planning on getting rid of his version of Thor anytime soon. In the way that Taika Waititi talked about it, he also sounded like the Jane Foster version of Thor wasn't going to replace him anytime soon. I think the way they're going to play it, though, is that she'll deal with more Earth-based problems, like she will show up again in future movies or future Disney Plus projects at some point when they need a version of Thor for smaller Earth-based problems. And because we just got Doctor Strange 2, they just teased all the incursions in the post-credit scene, the big lead-up to Secret Wars, big teaser for a giant multiverse war, Kang and everything that's going on with that.
Doctor Strange, you caused an incursion, and we're gonna fix it.
Chris Hemsworth's Thor will be more worried with that kind of stuff, the same way that he was trying to learn more about that during the beginning of Thor Ragnarok, Avengers Age of Ultron. But because they do want to make Christian Bale's Gorr the God Butcher seem like a legitimate threat inside the MCU to all these MCU gods, there are many of gods that we haven't met before yet. I think they're going to wind up killing most of these before both versions of Thor wind up taking him out. The way they tease it in the movie too, you see Valkyrie fighting with Zeus's lightning bolt, R.I.P. Zeus. It seems like Russell Crowe's Zeus kind of bites it, and that's why she's using his lightning bolt. But I think the reason why everything seems like it's black and white here is because the powers of the Necro Sword are basically leeching life force out of everything around it, and that's why Gorr the God Butcher seems like he becomes more and more inhuman throughout the trailer. I don't expect them to do any kind of null backstory because the whole thing with the Necro Sword is they retcon that later on with the Venom storyline to call that the Primal Symbiote. It's always possible that there's some Easter eggs for that, or you could possibly draw some meaning to that, but I don't think that the MCU has plans to do a null character anytime soon. I think when we're talking about the powers of the Necro Sword in the comics, it'll be more similar to the actual comic book version in the Gorr the God Butcher storyline. Like this really powerful cosmic artifact that is capable of killing beings that are that powerful. We'll get a little bit more footage pretty soon. I'll talk more about the difference between cosmic beings and gods because like the Celestials, for instance, are just cosmic beings who are really, really powerful. In Doctor Strange 2, we saw the legitimate living Tribunal. That's not meant to be a god, that's just a really powerful cosmic figure. But like the living Tribunal is meant to be the most powerful figure almost next to the one above all, who is like the one true god of the entire Marvel multiverse. Like more powerful than the Beyonders and more powerful than Franklin Richards, who also got a name drop during Doctor Strange 2. We're at that point in the MCU now where they just start whipping out every OP character that you've ever heard of, no matter how obscure, from that toy box. But when we're talking about the Secret Wars teaser, I think they're replacing the Beyonders plot with the Kang Multiverse War plot. Like, Kang himself will be a much bigger figure in this version of Secret Wars in the MCU. They are filming Loki Season 2 right now. Maybe we'll get some kind of post-credit scene with a version of Loki from the Loki series. Everyone post all your reactions and your theories in the comments below. There's a whole bunch of other trailers and a bunch of Marvel stuff premiering this week. Make sure you have alerts enabled for my channel so you don't miss that. There are going to be a lot of Marvel and a lot of Star Wars shows happening this summer. Of course, I'll do videos for everything. Everyone click here for my other big Thor Love and Thunder trailer video, and click here for my brand new Black Adam trailer video and Easter eggs. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.